So why don't we start by just kind of giving just a brief overview of yourself and where you came from and how did you end up here at Investopedia?
Okay. So I've been in the digital media space since 1998, 1999, when I started working at DoubleClick. I was a relatively early employee over there. And I've just always loved digital. I've worked for 1-800-Flowers for about 5 years. I worked for Everyday Health, which is a big media publication, for a few years, and I worked for Seeking Alpha as well. So just been in the media tech digital space for a while. And in terms of why I came to Investopedia, I absolutely love financial education. There is a major problem in the country around a lack of financial literacy. For example, there are 10,000 boomers who are retiring every single day, and they have no concept around, oftentimes, how to invest their money, how to save for retirement. The average retirement savings in the country is $55,000.
Wow.
Which is terrifying.
That's nuts.
If I feel like Investopedia can have a bigger impact on helping to solve the financial literacy crisis and help people to learn more and save more and hopefully have better marriages because they're actually saving more, have better retirement times, and that for me is why I joined Investopedia. The other reason I joined Investopedia, I would say, is because of who owns it. So we're owned by IAC. So IAC owns Tinder and Match and HomeAdvisor and Angie's List and Vimeo and all these great companies. And they basically said, hey, we want you to come over, we want you to run Investopedia, and we're going to invest heavily behind it. And they did.
Yeah.
And it's been great growth so far.
That's amazing. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the growth of Investopedia, the reach you guys have on a monthly basis, your readership and all of that?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we reach 27 million people a year.
Oh my God.
Big number. Excuse me, 27 million people a month.
Wow.
It's a big number.
Yes. Especially for financial information, right?
Right. So we're only focused on finance and investing. And 27 million people a month, which essentially equates to about 50% are in the US, and interestingly, 50% are actually outside of the US.
Oh, really?
We have tons of people in Canada, UK, India, Hong Kong, all throughout Europe, etc., that are reading about Investopedia, even though it's only in English.
Yeah.
We still have a very huge following outside the country.
That's interesting. Is that because of content specific to those countries, or it's just this general knowledge of financial information that other people in other countries can apply and learn from?
I think there's a general respect for the U.S. capital markets and U.S. financial systems. Right. I don't think that other countries have their quote-unquote Investopedias. And we really are fairly well respected, across the world. So it isn't so much that we have the German definition of understanding what ETFs.
That's amazing. So we like to keep these conversations tailored to our audience, who are early stage founders, people who have raised a small seed round or raised their Series A, and they're trying to break into the tech industry. You being who you are with your tons of experience sort of working from the 90s till now, what sort of advice would you dispel on folks out there, founders that are looking to start their own internet companies?
Sure. So I'll give parenthetically, I actually teach entrepreneurship at 2 universities.
Very cool.
I teach entrepreneurship at Pace, and I also teach it at Columbia. So it's definitely a passion of mine,
awesome.
Entrepreneurship. So the number one thing I would say for a founder, and perhaps it's a cliche, but it's all about who you surround yourself with. It's about finding people who are different than you, finding people with complementary skill sets. Too many founders end up choosing a number 2 or number 3 person who is kind of similar to their personality. Founders hyper-aggressive, and they like hyper-aggressive people, and they're going to keep hiring those same types of hyper-aggressive people.
Right.
It's so much better for a founder to find complementary skill sets. You're the type A personality, find the person who's more thoughtful, who's a little bit of a slower decision maker. You take more time, find the type A sales type personality.
Right.
I would say that is priority number 1, 2, and 3 is surround yourself by complementary skill sets.
Right. So would you say the Zuckerbergs and the Musks, they're sort of like the outliers of like, you know, the solo founders that are basically doing this thing. And you know, you should try to find another person or a co-founder to sort of complement those skills.
Well, I don't know if your number 2 or 3 necessarily has to be a co-founder.
Okay.
But if you look at Zuckerberg and you look at Sheryl Sandberg, she complements his skill set in a lot of very, very important ways. And you know, I don't necessarily think that Facebook would be where it is if they didn't have the combination of those two. So I don't necessarily think it has to be a co-founder type relationship. It can be you're the founder and you're hiring people on your team, and they would get obviously equity as part of that, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the kind of pure co-founder type thing.
Right. Okay. So how many employees does Investopedia currently have right now?
So when I started about 2.5 years ago only, I was the 27th employee.
Right.
We now have about 120.
Wow, that's a lot of growth.
That's a lot of growth. We're in our it's less than 2.5 years actually, and we're now in our 3rd office.
Oh wow!
We have a 7.5-year lease in this office, so if our you know, building manager is watching, don't worry, we're going to be here for a while. Hopefully, we'll take over another floor at some point. But yeah, we've had over 4x the growth in the last 2.5 years.
That's amazing. Where would you say majority of those departments are being filled from? Is it engineering? Is it content? Is it?
So we went from having 0 developers as employees at Investopedia who are actually doing coding because development was offshored by the previous owners prior to IAC. So we now have, I think, 45 developers in the company.
Oh wow!
Of those 45 developers, 44 of them, we have one exceptional person here, 44 of them are actually in Edmonton, Canada.
Oh really?
And the reason for that is because Investopedia was actually founded by 2 hockey buddies in Edmonton, and there was an office there. And you know, what I like to say is here we have to compete with Facebook and Google, you know, et cetera, for great tech dev talent. In Edmonton, we're competing. We are the Facebook and Google in Edmonton.
Yeah.
You know, we're competing with some old, stodgy, oftentimes kind of oil companies. So we're the sexiest thing out there. So it's great to
Big
hire
fish, small
talent.
pond, right?
Big fish, small pond, for sure.
Yeah.
So, so we have obviously a lot of developers. We have a 20+ person editorial team. We have a 25-person sales team. So it's been growth throughout, but I would say the biggest percentage growth was in developers. You got to build great products. And obviously, developers help you to build great products. Project managers, product managers, etc.
Right. So, growing at that scale where you guys basically 4x, like how do you still keep that culture and that shared mission still there within the company?
It's one of the most important things you could do as a company. I mean, hands down. I always say that there's no difference between culture and leadership. Meaning someone will be like, oh, this culture of this company sucks. You know what? The leaders of the company then suck.
Right.
Meaning if you don't have the right leaders, you don't have the right culture. So kind of step number 1 in ensuring you have a great culture is you need the leaders in the company to exemplify that culture that you really stand for.
Right.
We've actually codified the cultural attributes that are most important to our company. I can share it with you if you want.
Yeah, please. That would be amazing.
Yeah. So there are 5 things, and we actually call it there. Where's the? At my
you got
desk.
The manifesto?
Well, no, I don't see it right here.
Oh.
We actually have scope bottles at everyone's desk. And the reason for it is it stands for scope, not because people have bad breath. Don't worry. And what it stands for is S is for selflessness. That we like to hire and promote people who are truly selfless in how they work. They don't prioritize what their needs are. There's not an ego focus, but it's more about how do I help the team. That's S for selfless. C is for celebrate big wins, small wins, etc. There we go. Here's
awesome.
scope bottles. Yay!
That's genius. I love that. Did you get a good shot of that, Emmett, on live? So every employee gets this?
Every employee has one at their desk.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So C is for celebrating. O is for over-communicating. When you get bigger, you can't just be a good communicator, you have to be an over-communicator. If you're not sure, CC that person on that email. If you're not sure, set up that meeting to make sure that everyone understands exactly what's happening. You can't just manage through telling 2 or 3 people when you have 120. It's very different than when you had only 20 employees.
Right.
P is for planning. That's important. because again, as you get bigger, you can't just operate by the seat of your pants and and just make decisions quickly. And E is for empowering, and that's about empowering employees. If they see something, then they should say something. If they disagree with me, they should walk into my office and tell me I completely disagree. Right. It's about empowering people to be the CEOs of their area and owning it. So we use that for recruiting. Right. We use that for reviews of employees, and I think it really resonates because it makes sure that the types of people who we continue to bring in, the types of leadership qualities that we look for, are people who are selfless, focused on celebrating, over-communicating, planning-oriented, and empowering of people.
Right. So do you think, is it ever too early for a company to set those values, like when they're starting out, or would you say wait a little bit for them to figure it out?
I don't think, I think it's like when you have 3 employees, you certainly don't need to codify that, like, okay, these are our cultural values. Yeah. Because it has to kind of come up from the ground up, and it has to really represent who you are. Right. We frankly didn't codify our values until we were about 100 employees. Right. Because it had to represent who we are, rather than just kind of some words on a screen. It had to be when I talked about it with the team, they said, oh my God, that's so us. Yeah. And there's not that so us when there's only 3 or 4 people. So what I would say is entrepreneurs need to be cognizant of the types of leaders and employees that they bring in initially, because the initial people are going to have an outsized impact on the culture of the company, without a doubt, and understand the types of attributes that they're looking for, high sense of urgency or high analytic focus, whatever it is. Right. But you shouldn't codify anything for quite some time.
Right.
That's my take on it. But always be cognizant that every hire that you make in the beginning is going to have a significant impact on the culture of the company. Right.
So would you say kind of like, hire slow, fire fast? Like, do you?
I mean, I agree with I'm not sure about the hire slow, fire. You definitely have to fire fast. Yeah. That I agree with. Yeah. Because you can't, especially if you know someone's not the right person, let them stay for too long. To hire slow, I would say that you don't necessarily know who's going to be a rock star. And I've interviewed lots of people who I thought were going to be rock stars, and they weren't. I thought people who were going to be B players, and they ended up turning into rock stars. Right. And maybe I'm just a bad interviewer. But I think you want to bring people in, especially in the beginning, that are athletes, that show an ability to do a whole lot of potentially different things, as opposed to just kind of experts in one particular area. And if you do that, then you'll find the right position, hopefully, for them in the organization over time. But I don't think many startups have the luxury of necessarily just hiring slowly, especially if they just got a Series A or a Series B and they just start spending money. Right. If you're, just an angel stage and there's no, big hiring focus, then of course you should be very diligent in who you bring in.
Right. So that could be a good segue to my next question, which is, what is your advice for entrepreneurs dealing with failure and adversity? Yeah. Right. I mean, I can remember when I was first starting Law Trades and we were raising our first round of funding, I must have gotten rejected by at least 100 different investors. And from each rejection, I took it as like, all right, how can I sort of like improve from there, or like, what are some data points that I can like capture to sort of improve my next pitch, and so on and so forth. But for a lot of folks out there, it's a very lonely, distressing sort of like path that they take. How do you deal with that yourself? But also, like, what's some advice you could give to entrepreneurs that are out there in dealing with failure and adversity?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like to some extent you embraced it, and it's very easy to say embrace it, but you have to say, what is the goal of the initial meetings that I'm going to be having? If the expectation of trying to raise money in an initial meeting is that money is just going to be coming and flowing left and right at you, and people are just going to be falling in love with your concept, majority of the time, then you need to reset those expectations. Right. It's very easy to say that failure is far more valuable than success, but it really is. Yeah. And like the most important thing an entrepreneur can do is to say, I am going to embrace failure. I am going to fail 100 times, and from every single one of them, I'm going to figure out exactly what you did. What is the one thing that I did wrong? What's the one takeaway that I can make to just make my pitch deck better, to make my pitch better, to build a better relationship? Right. Being introspective and being truly self-aware and not taking it personally that the failure means you're a failure. It's not a failure if you learn something, and it's about kind of changing the definition of failure.
Right.
If you present it and they don't end up deciding to invest behind you, but you learn something and you built a relationship with someone, that's hardly a failure. That's a success.
Right.
And you have to be looking at all those small win successes and not perceiving them as failures.
Right. And I guess that's where sort of the passion comes from, right? So it's like you're not starting a startup for all the goodness of it. You're kind of just like, what level of pain can I assess? You know, can I really partake to start this journey?
Absolutely. You have to be willing to go through a whole lot of, obviously, pain, but the goal is to make it non-painful, in my personal opinion. It's to say, I am going to learn so much every single time. If you say the goal of a startup, Lean Startup is one of my favorite books, and Lean Startup talks about how the goal of a startup is learning.
Right.
Straight up. So if the goal of a startup is learning, and you're meeting lots of people and you're going to be learning from all those conversations, then in the beginning you are achieving your goals. That's not a failure.
Right.
So it's about setting the right expectations and setting the right goals.
Nice. So to shift gears a little bit back to more of an operational question.
Yeah.
I read that you grew sales by over 300%. So for all those sales startups that are out there that are looking for, clients, customers, enterprise level customers,
Yep.
what have you, what do you think contributed to that level of growth?
Yeah. Really one thing stands out the most in why we grew sales so quickly. Too many entrepreneurs will think that it's all about hiring the best salesperson and the second best salesperson, the third best salesperson. And then what happens is you don't surround the salespeople with the infrastructure that they oftentimes need to succeed. What we had when I joined was like, let's say, 7 salespeople and 2 people helping to support them with creating decks, putting ad plans together, managing campaigns. And what happened is each salesperson was actually spending like 80% of his or her time not actually selling, but preparing for the sale, preparing the decks, managing campaigns afterwards, not actually out there. So oftentimes, and a lot of entrepreneurs don't appreciate this, the success of sales is in the sales support teams that you surround sales with. You want sellers to be on the street. You want sellers to be spending as close to 100% of their time selling.
Right.
And when I started, we had too few employees to do that, so we had lots of sellers that weren't actually spending any time selling.
Yeah.
They were doing decks.
Yeah.
So we built out, probably have now, from 7, we now maybe have 11 sellers, but we have 10 to 15 people supporting those 11 sellers,
Right.
versus 7 and having 2 people supporting them.
Right.
And now the sellers are actually spending their time focused and really selling, and they have the expertise of people to support them. And I know this sounds very rudimentary, it's just kind of an organizational structure thing, but it's extremely important, because the myth of the amazing salesperson that's going to just completely change one's life overnight is all wonderful, and maybe that happens, but it's not repeatable. It's very hard to repeat that. You want to build a system, and that's very, very important. And the second thing is, I think that we brought in a great CRO that obviously helped a lot, leadership, and then the third, I would say, is the products that we build. Is we're not just selling like just display banners on our site, but we're building content solutions and big sponsorships and video experiences. So we moved away from kind of just boring traditional display ads into a whole lot, a suite of different better ad solutions. But at the end of the day, I think the number one thing was the support that we provide our sellers.
Right. So
Hope that wasn't too long.
No. That was.
I care about that one a lot.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's perfect content to hear, because I feel like a lot of times entrepreneurs get wrapped up into the whole process and like making sure their product is perfect,
Right.
or like making sure that their decks are there and like they have the whole Rolodex of people they're gonna call, but then like actually executing and picking up the phone and just pounding the calls is something sometimes just like missed. But it's like one of those like obvious things that are just right there that you just need executors to just do it day in and day out.
Yep.
So what is your bigger vision of Investopedia? Like, what's your vision for Investopedia? Where do you see it going? Let's say, what does it look like 10 years from now?
10 years, woo!
Yeah.
That's a long time. Okay.
We got to think of decades here.
Oh boy. So, I mean, our mission is, and who we are, is we're the world's largest finance investing education site. That's never going to change. We make people, we help people make smarter investing and financial decisions. So what are we doing over the next few years that we already started, but that I think will actually be bigger than the business that we have today? So right now, we're a free site. Anyone can come in and use us. 27 million people a month do. Wonderful. We actually just started something called Investopedia Academy. We started it just 3 months ago. We have 3 courses live. We have another 2 courses that are going to be live in the next couple of weeks. Things like fundamental analysis, Excel for finance, financial modeling, technical analysis, those types of
And these
topics.
are paid courses.
These are paid courses. So
very cool.
the entire MOOC space, which stands for Massive Open Online Courses, is a $2.5 billion industry going to about an $8 billion industry.
Mm-hmm.
Finance should be about 10% of that. So it's an $800 million kind of market out there around finance and investing related courses.
Right.
For trading, for personal finance, etc. So I believe that Investopedia Academy in 10 years from now will be bigger than the core Investopedia.com site that we have today.
Very cool.
And it kind of exactly leverages what our expertise is, which is finance and investing education, just in a different way, in that we have these amazing, robust kind of videos that and courses and certifications that people go through with testing throughout. Totally excited about it, and it's been we've already sold like over 2,000 courses just in the first couple of months. So
that's amazing.
It's been great.
Do you think that will replace the MBA at one point?
So it's funny. We're doing a strategic planning meeting with the CEO of IAC literally tomorrow.
Oh wow.
Once a year we do like a big strategy meeting.
Right.
And one of the things we'll be talking about is get your Investopedia MBA.
Oh, nice.
And potentially will align with the university. But I envision a world where our users get an accredited MBA through Investopedia.
Yeah.
And that would be really exciting.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have a lot of younger people watching this right now. Especially a lot of millennials who are sort of kind of juggling student loans with kind of, you know, renting small places in New York City and not buying homes, and this whole like kind of change of economy, I guess, like personal finance.
Yeah.
What is just one financial tip that you could give to this younger generation of folks to help them sort of improve their personal finances?
Can I give 2, please?
All right,
Please?
two,
Okay.
two, yes.
So the 2 will be, number 1 is avoid credit card debt at all cost. Credit card debt hurts your credit, and it also, you pay horribly, very difficult interest rates on that debt. Avoid it at all costs. Do everything to avoid credit card debt.
Yeah.
That's kind of number 1. Number 2 is, if you need to live at home, that's okay. A lot of people do. Max out your 401k, get that 401k match, start early. I started with my 401k when I was 22 years old. I'm not going to tell you how much it is right now, but it's a lot more than it was when I was 22. I've pretty much maxed my 401k amount, and I've got it matching every single year. The compounding is compoundulous. It's really phenomenal, and I guess the best thing you could do is really try to save money in your 401k and get the company matches, because it's just giving you free money. And who doesn't like free money?
I love free money.
There you go.
All right, so we're going to end it off with one last question, just a little open-ended and broad, but what is your definition of success?
Definition of success. I'm a family guy. I got 3 kids and a great wife. So definition of success is a happy personal life, which for me means a great relationship between me and my wife, a great relationship between me and my children as a family, and the ability to actually, with our time on this earth, truly help people. If I'm not a doctor, I'm not a surgeon, but if we're able to help younger people, older people save for retirement, help people make smarter financial decisions, we really are helping people, and that's a successful life.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's the perfect note to end it. David, thank you so much for interviewing with us. This was amazing. Really good content. I'm sure our audience will really appreciate it. And go on, is Investopedia on Facebook, obviously, right?
We are.
Facebook.com/Investopedia.
Got it.
At Investopedia, Twitter. Are you on Twitter or anything?
Of course, at David Mayer Siegel, which is my Twitter handle. But check out at Investopedia.com. It's a lot more active than mine.
Yeah. So follow it. Ask your questions. We'll do some follow-ups if people have any other questions. Ask it in the comments, and we'll try to get you some answers. But other than that, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Very fun. Thank you.
Take care. You okay?
Yeah, that was awesome. Yeah. Did